This is brought to you by the George Jackson Grassroots Collective, a progressive organization in the new African independence movement that cultivates revolutionary transfer culture, liberating the minds through awareness and education, protecting and training our people while fostering unity as stated in the Code of Umoja. Welcome to the George Jackson Grassroots Collective Dialogue Session.
Greetings, my name is Abdul Ghazi, National Chairman of the George Jackson Grassroots Collective, and today we got a special guest. Could you please announce yourself, please, sir?
My name is Gjgrc. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Jordan University. I hold Jordan Radio, and I'm an active spokesperson of Jordan University. I'm a New York International and New York citizen. And a propagandist. This is who I am. In a nutshell.
Yes, sir. It's a pleasure to have you on here today, once again. And today's discussion is about RAM. Could you please tell me when and where was RAM formed, and what does RAM mean?
Okay. Well, the origin of RAM, it go back to the early '60s when the brothers and sisters were in college. It started off as a cadre. A cadre that was developed in 1961. It was a cadre. It was SDS cadre. SDS, through the Democratic Society, was an organization that was built on attaining certain civil rights. So the organization consists of new African people and European members as well, right? Whereas on the campus, where they was at in Central State College, this whole cadre was a new African cadre. The actual was a sale for SDS, right? They were called Challenge. So the Challenge consists of varied people from different walks of life. Some people from the Nation of Islam, some people were African nationalists. There were different things. So some people had different beliefs and different ideologies, right? But it was a student-based organization where they would fight for certain rights on the campus, whether certain rights, you know what I'm saying, in the civil rights movement at that time. So the Challenge cadre agreed to form their own particular movement, right? And that movement developed in 1962 in Central State College, right? It developed from weeks of conversation that started taking place in May all the way to June, and were developed. And when they first created it, right, they agreed that they didn't want people to view them as people that were doing things that were considered to be criminal, or doing things that were considered to be pushing people away by a certain time, but using the term revolution. So instead of them using revolution, they said reform action movement. They used it as a disguise what they actually were doing, which was really revolutionary work. And later on, they changed the name to Revolution Action Movement. But it first begun as Reform Action Movement in Central State College in Ohio.
Yes, sir. Where was RAM's first chapter organized, and who organized it?
Okay. Well, of course, different people with students around. A lot of them left the university. People such as Walter Marshall left. People such as Maxwell Stanford left. They also were founders of RAM as well, right? So the first person to establish anything was Maxwell Stanford. He established a RAM chapter in Philadelphia in 1962, right? He established a chapter there in 1962. Then we established the chapter, right? You know, then in Philadelphia, where you from? So he went, but they agreed to go back where he from and establish chapters in a certain area. But he established the first one, which is in Philadelphia in 1962, December 1962 at that.
Yes, sir. When did RAM become public?
Well, it actually became public in 1963. The next year it became public. In 1963, it became public to society. And during that time, Maxwell Stanford being educated by different individuals, that had been tuned to They were motivating different movements such as African Blood Brotherhood, the UNIA, so forth and so on. Right, started educating about certain things. Also, a brother named Don Freeman as well, which is with a brother with elderly over him. He was educating about certain things as well because they were pushing certain student movements in regards to uh, the national aspect of things. That they don't became a national aspect of things. So he was being educated by different individuals, right, into the movement. And the person who helped him organize were people like Warner Marshall. They recruited people like Playthal Benjamin. They recruited Daniels. They recruited these different individuals. They recruited the individual that started organized with RAM. And RAM was it basically was a semi-clandestine organization at that time, right? It was semi-clandestine. It had certain things, Stan Daniel, it had certain things that were above the ground, certain things were underground. It was semi-clandestine because that's the way they were functioning in particular at that time, right? That's how they going on. That was going on in particular, you know. So I hope that answer your question.
Yes, sir. When did it become a national organization?
Well, like I said earlier, I mentioned Don Freeman, right? Don Freeman had organized an organization in Ohio. The organization was a student organization, right? I think it was called African American Student Institute, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong, but I think that would recall. And what they were pushing was they wanted to push an aspect of a student black nationalism, right? So they had a conference. They had a conference. Matter of fact, let me take that back. Um, the organization that pushed it was African American Student Association, which was another organization. He didn't find out there was another organization at that time, right? Because the student movement kind of becoming popular at that time. So African American Student Association, they were coming out of Frick University in Nashville, Tennessee, right? They organized a conference dealing with student black nationalism. And the conference lasted from May the 1st to May the 4th, 1964, right? And during that time, um, the RAM became a national organization, right? It became a national organization at that time, right? Became a national organization. That means that they became known to the people and regardless of what they were doing, right? So a lot of these works and efforts started recruiting from different people. They started organizing different chapters started being organized around by the nation, such as in Philadelphia, Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, New York, California, so forth, so on, right? They started organized around that time in particular, right? So during that organization time period, they started developing on the communication that they already had with different individuals, different elders such as Queen Mother Moore, uh, people like Ella Baker, and other people that have been in the movement, recruiting like Ella Baker. She had one of the first student organizations that were clicking, that were all working with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee known as SNCC, with the created in 1960. Also in the University of North Carolina, right? So she had some experience with doing certain things already. So a lot of these individuals were educating them and mentoring them and speaking about certain things they were already doing. Especially like Queen Mother Moore, who came from the Communist Party, very people, the elders out the Gjgrc movement, so forth and so on, were educating them, right? So eventually they created what you term a program, right? And the program was called a 12-point program. And the 12-point program were organized by the Central Committee, which is their basically government body. People have positions, right? The 12-point program consisted of everything such as like I'm gonna name some of the things it consists of, right? Like one development of a national black student organization, right? And everything they built had a definition behind it. Like for instance, uh, the student movement was built upon there was a way to be a nationwide group, which was to educate and organize, right? A black student struggle with possible goal. The student movement was to support the guerrilla force through demonstration, organize, and mass support, right? Then it's things like development ideology, where they turned freedom school, right? And that development of ideology freedom school were to aid in the cadre development. They were developing cadre. Then the development rifle clubs. Development rifle club, which would be the base of black militia, can protect the black community. Ultimately, will form a base for establishing local government. Rifle club will work for the Liberation Army. Okay, in regard to that terminology, they're actually telling you that they were building the Black Liberation Army. which predate the Black Liberation we hear about all the time regarding the Black Panther Party. And also these rifle clubs also particular functions of various movements, right? That around with creating influence. Okay, another thing was the development of a liberation army, an African guerrilla youth, right? This development of army liberation, the purpose of which was to carry out the political, economic, and physical authority of the state. It almost to be a guerrilla force will operate within the cities. And later on develop things we can talk about later on. Okay. Number 5, development of propaganda, training center, national organization. The training center were to be responsible for the national organ, Black America, which is a newspaper they had, right? It was one the organ they had, and were to focus on organizing and coordinating the movement, right? Number 6 was development of an underground vanguard. As I said, they were semi-clandestine. Development of underground vanguard, which will develop the revolutionary machinery capable of carrying on the revolution, and the major leadership would kill the capture. It would create military and political apparatus, but made up of small, tightly knit, highly disciplined, independent fight unit, cadres and cells. Okay. Next one, development of Black Worker Liberation Union. The ordinary Black Worker Liberation Union that would be the leading force for general strike would call Black women workers who work in white homes would be organized in women leagues. Number 8, development of a block organization, cells. The Black community would be organized block to block by cadres who live in the community. Your organization on a block base would form the foundation for later political organizing. Number 9, development of a nation with a nation concept, a government exile. But we're talking about the fear in the government now. Development of the ideological concept of a nation within a nation and of a government in exile were in part of the ROUND program. Robert L. Williams was the leading exile, the colonial nature of Black oppression, the goal of liberation instead of integration, and the overthrow of capitalism in the white state were to be raised continued by ROUND organizers. And the next one were development of a war fund for political economy. The ones that war fund so the war machine could be financed. The next one was developing a Black farmers co-op. Farmer co-op will be developed in the South, particularly Mississippi Delta, and will be used by community guerrilla forces. Next one were development of an army of Black unemployed. An army of Black unemployed will be organized to demonstrate against discrimination in industry to receive federal aid and in North against union discrimination. And all they were created by the aspect of a committee, what they call it, the Central Committee, and some of the officers that were elected was like International Spokesman with Malcolm X, International Chairman Robert L. Williams, National Field Chair Matt Stanford, Executive Chairman Don Freeman, Ideological Chairman Jane Bard, Executive Secretary Grace Bard, and the Treasurer was Milton Henry, aka Gotti Alberdelli, and also Paul Brooks. So those are some of the programs they had, and as you see, look at these programs, think about some of the things they're talking about. They paved the way for various organizations to do certain things, such as PG, such as the PG, such as Black Panther Party, Black Army, so forth and so on. There was an out of the basic 12-point program, that they paid and pushed out there. So I hope they answer your question, brother.
Yes, sir. There's also a meeting that we had called the BLF meeting. What is that? What is the meaning of BLF?
The BLF to the ROUND organization after Black Liberation Front, right? The Black Liberation Front was a concept in which that they were actually pushing at that time to unify everything, right? To unify the different movements at that time. Because ROUND was an organization that was pushing the revolutionary Black nationalism before everybody else. Well, they basically were the one to basically coin a lot of those terms being revolutionary nationalism, Black revolutionary, so forth and so on, right? So they had communication with people, like they established the Black America. The Black America was a publication that they had that they were pushing out there as a propagation engine that would utilize to educate the mind and mass of the people nationwide, right? And while they were pushing their propaganda, they used it as a tool to communicate with people. But see, one thing that ROUND was doing that a lot of people wasn't doing, they also had ROUND speech as well, right? And a lot of the respect for the Black America, they take a lot of respect from what Malcolm X was saying. Malcolm had a journal that he wrote in called Black America. They took a lot of the name from that. And Malcolm X also was responsible for what you turn Muhammad's speech, we can't let him find out he was responsible for 1 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 But they not only communicate people, they actually went to see what we had going on. So they went to places like Detroit, and people in Detroit had the Uhuru movement. They also developed later on the drum Detroit Revolutionary Union movement, right? They also went to places like the California to see the different collectors that were pushing the Soul Book. They also went to places like Cleveland to meet a brother like Don Freeman who was pushing the African American Student Institute, right? And a lot of these organizations at that time came up on the Black Liberation Front. And not only you recruiting and uniting brothers and sisters inside America, they also a lot of them organizations I named, they also made a pilgrimage to Cuba, right? Made a pilgrimage to Cuba to meet Robert Williams, right? Who organized down. And Robert Williams also had a political engine as well that he was utilizing at Radio Dixie, right? And he also had to pay for the Crusader. The Crusader was a paper that he had that also propagated information about what was going on in the struggle, what was going on in Black America. Robert also made a documentary about it as well called Black America. Well, the Crusader itself was a term taken from the old publication of the African Blood Brotherhood, which is a movement that was created in 1919 by Syria Breed, and then the African Blood Brotherhood was a real organization that was bent on armed revolution and struggle that had a lot of Marxist ideas about certain things, right? And when all these delegations went to Cuba, right? When they went to Cuba, mind you, during the discussion, a lot of them agreed that they unite and push the Black Liberation Front. And up on the Black Liberation Front, a lot of these people in different organizations actually became members of RAM. Like I said, Robert Williams became the international chairman because he was international already. When Malcolm X was recruited, he became the international spokesperson. When Malcolm X went to Africa, there was a lot of work dealing with RAM because he also was there. A lot of his speeches got recorded in America. It was in Africa by Milton Henry, aka Gotti Abadeli, who's also a member of RAM as well, along with other members of RAM that also like Amari Abadeli. Also, when you go out to the rifle club aspect of things, you had people like Barbara Herman Ferguson. You had a Jamaican rifle club, but in Harlem, New York, right? Which also became a RAM-based organization. So a lot of these organizations, a lot of these membership in different organizations became absorbed to the RAM umbrella up on the Black Liberation Front, right? And they were pushing that idea to create a united front to attain all the goals and what they were talking about in the 12-point program, because everybody agreed with it. They became members of RAM also as well, right? And so they really became a national organization. And that's why when people in New York started creating a RAM chapter, it came through Barbara Herman Ferguson, the Jamaican Rifle Club. People started doing things in California. It came through a lot of people in the Soul Book Collective, and also people like Mamadou Lumumba and other individuals. Started doing things in Ohio. It came through Brother Don Freeman, his organization. It came to brother started like the Drum came about, other organization in Detroit came about the RAM organization through the aspect of the Uhuru movement, members of the Uhuru movement. A Uhuru movement that was also a Detroit organization that embraced around philosophy ideas. So it was like a trickle effect in regard to RAM being influential in all the organization and movement and creating the front to accomplish their goals and achieve what they were pushing out for, which is revolution by nationalism. And I yield.
Yes, sir. And I would like to do an honorable mention of Maxwell Curtis Stanford Jr., known since 1970 as Muhammad Ahmad, is a civil rights activist and was a founder of the Revolutionary Action Movement, RAM, a Black Power organization active during the 1960s, born on July 31st, 1941 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He graduated from West Philadelphia High School and attended Central State College in Wilberforce, Ohio from 1960 to 1962. Stanford left college after founding RAM in the summer of 1962. Okay, and this leads me to my next question. Did RAM have any code of conduct or rules?
Yes, I'm gonna read what they had. They had a code. One of the code they had with a code of cadre, right? And it went like this. You had The first one was absolute loyalty to the movement and leadership, right? 2, high revolutionary spirits. 3, constant advanced training, revolutionary black internationalism. Because RAM was also international, like I was saying earlier, that you had Malcolm X going to Africa, you had Dr. Muhammad Ahmad going to Cuba, you had Robert Williams to Cuba, so forth, so on. Okay. 3, constant advanced training. 4, strict observance of movement discipline. 5, direct connection with the masses. 6, strict observance of the rules of safekeeping of secrets. 7, the ability to work independently, very important in time of revolution. 8, willingness to work unselfishness. Okay, that what they call the cadre, right? And they also they mentioned number 6 said the strict observance of the rules of safekeeping the secrets, right? They based a code itself. The rules for the safekeeping of secrets, right? You got 1, making absolutely no mention of secret which should not be mentioned. So that goes on to say, you need to know the basis. When people talk about it, need to know the basis, which is a good thing. 2, make no attempt to find out secret which should not be known. 3, taking definitely no look at the secret which should not be looked at. 4, mention absolutely no secret in private correspondence. 5, recording no secret matter in private notebooks. 6, discussing no secrets in place that not advantages to security. 7, keeping a careful custody a classified document carried on the tour, making sure they will not be lost. 8, waging a resolute struggle when discovering violations of the security system and acts of losing and disclose secrets and report immediately to the superior. That sound real suspicious to me. You know what I'm saying? Especially right now in regard to what's going on. Especially as a prevention toward provocateur mentality, liberalism, infiltration, and so forth, so on, man. It sounds good to me, right? There's a good discipline code in regard to certain things, especially in regard to information that we push. Especially when we organize certain things up on the Kleinstein or the semi-Kleinstein nation, because in that way, keeping it secret, you can't, what you're doing won't be known, so it can't be destroyed. Anything unknown can't be destroyed. Anything known can be destroyed. So it's an operation of certain things, right? They're moving forward, So I agree with all of that. It's a beautiful illustration, especially as a
Yes,
forerunner to the various movements that we see now. It's a forerunner to it. Because mind you, that time when all they were pushing, it wasn't no Black Panther Party. It wasn't a lot of everything. It wasn't Republic of Africa. It wasn't an All Africa People Revolutionary Social Party. It wasn't an All Africa Revolutionary Party. There wasn't none of that going on, In general, none of that going on in
yes,
that time.
sir.
So that
And
they paved the way for the Black Liberation Movement.
yes, sir. And on a side note, going into my next question, I like to adding more emphasis into Malcolm X. Marshall and Stanford met Malcolm X in Harlem in November 1962, and Malcolm would join the organization before embarking on his trip to Mecca, Saudi Arabia in 1964. Ram's philosophy combined elements of Black nationalism, Marxism, and the Third World internationalism. My next question leading into this, you brought up the Black Panthers and how they was influenced by Ram. Could you tell me what is the Ram base Black Panther Party?
Well, that's an interesting question, man, because a lot of times people hear about the Black Panther Party. They only know about Hugh Bobby Seale and Edgar Cleaver and Kathleen Cleaver, and Conrad George and other individuals like that. Whereas the Black Panther Party initially started off as the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, or some would say Lowndes County Freedom Party. And their symbol was a Black Panther. So they started calling it the Black Panther Party. This was in 1965. Whereas Ram already was influencing Schnick to be revolutionary nationalists, because the influence they go from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee to the Student National Coordinating Committee. And they had they actually had an agreement to merge with them regarding certain things, right? So Maxwell Stanford went to the chairman at that time, which was Stokely Carmichael, aka Kwame Ture at that time, asked him to form a union in regards that they wanted to create their own Panther chapters, right? So to distinguish themselves, they would term their chapter Round Bay Black Panther chapters. So the first one established in June 1966 in Harlem, New York, and they also would call it Black Panther Party of New York, BPP-NY, which is Round Bay Black Panther Party. And mind you, at that time, June 1966, there wasn't no Black Panther self-defense. There wasn't no Bobby Seale, one of you, one of that. But also, in respect to that, Bobby Seale was exposed to a RAM organization, and Mary Collett, known as the Soul Advisor, was a RAM organization. And that's why he recruited Huey along with him to become a part of it. But due to things that occurred, that they were out from the organization. But nevertheless, they still was educated on the RAM ideas and concepts at that time through Soul Advisor. Like I said earlier, a lot of organizations were actually aligned to the RAM umbrella, or they pushing the Black Liberation Front and also educating because they had some kind of particular influence, right? So these Round Bay Black Panther chapters started spreading out the same place around was at. They started spreading out from New York. They started going to Philly. They started going to Chicago. They started going to the West Coast. And all the places they were going to, they already had Ram chapters already anyway. Whereas Round Bay Black Panther Party, wanted to be different, wanted to be different that they wanted certain a lot of things they do to be clandestine, right? So that they wasn't with the aspect of let people know they had guns and weapons, things of that nature. Where the Black Panther self-defense made a stand that they basically came out October 1966, right? So they put the self-defense on them to distinguish themselves from the Round Bay Black Panther Party, which was the Black Panther Party in New York, which is Black Panther Party. So they put the self-defense on it to distinguish that it wasn't the Round Bay Black Panther Party, right? In 1967, they marched into the Capitol in Sacramento with the guns and everything. And when the Round Bay Black Panther Party seen this, they wanted to dissociate themselves with it because they had the same name. So a lot of them disbanded. All the chapters disbanded. On the East Coast, they were already working. They were already working in 64, 65. See, they were all working with all the street organizations. They were already going to Chicago and LA, California, LA and New York, and other places, and recruit different people in the street organizations, right? So when they disbanded the Round Bay Black Panther 67, they created the Black Guards. And the Black Guards was supposed to be like the youth military formation that they were pushing when they were talking about creating a young guerrilla force. They want to say the Liberation Army, right? But they were the Black Liberation Army they were talking about. You know what I'm saying? The Liberation Army they talking about, they called it Black Guard. It was in 67. Where that's on the East Coast. Well, on the West Coast at that time, on the Round Bay Black Panther chapter, you know what I'm saying? They dissolved into what you call the House of Moses, which was a semi-clandestine organization as well. You know what I'm saying? Which were actually more clandestine than Round was, right? But they came from the Round Bay Black chapter on the West Coast as well. Where the East Coast had the Black Guard. So those are the developments. Where the Black Panther self-defense, they eventually, when they saw that happen, they eventually dropped the self-defense and started calling it the Black Panther Party to signify that they were the Black Panther Party. You feel what I'm saying? So they're just some of the history, less known history that we talk about or people hear or know about, right? But it's documented, and the people around it still there was a part of these things, the concept, the formation, these cell, the cadre, the units that I'm talking about right now. A lot of people still around, a lot of else still around. They can talk about it and vouch for it, but it's still taking place. So that's basically what occurred in a nutshell. I hope that answers your question.
I would like to ask you the question of what was the biggest propagation tools that they had during that time?
Big propagation tool that they had was radio and newspaper. For like I was saying earlier, Ram had the Black America. They also had Ram Speaks. A lot of Ram college on the West Coast had the Soul Book, the Soul Book Incorporated. People like Robert Williams down in Cuba had Radio Dixie and also the Crusader. And other individuals had publications and radio as well, like people like Amari Gadi Abadeli, he had a lot of radio show where he was pushing gold. He had a lot of radio shows out to come out of Detroit. He had the radio shows and publications come out of Detroit. They were pushing that aspect in regards to men. So what they were doing a lot of Marine correspondence. They were pushing a lot of newsletter and propagation, and they also were visiting people face to face to have these real conversations. You know what I'm saying? The world going on. That was a propagation tool. But the main propaganda tool they're using, whatever the newsletter, the newspapers, on this, they put out certain statements in regard to certain people as a communication tool, like they were talking to each other through the papers. Basically, they were basically doing as a propagation tool. Like if like they were pushing, like if somebody pushing the aspect of how to arm resistance or black struggle, they all pushing that same thing in all their different publications. You know, and not just they were doing it publicly, they were doing nationally, they were doing it internationally because a lot of publication out of Sobel had an internet relationship with different people in Africa that were going through different struggles at that same time. People like Kenya that gained independence, people like Uganda that gained independence, people like Algeria that were going through certain things, people like Mozambique that were going through certain. So they had that communication with different individuals that was in that African and whether diaspora in the Caribbean, so forth, so on. The same thing with a relationship with Robert Williams, and also the aspect with Malcolm X going to Africa, making a very pilgrimage to Africa. Those communication standpoints in regard to talking about the plight of the new African man and woman and child in America, and also how we can unify and get better and make and destroy this system of white terror domination with some term white supremacy, right? Now, yeah.
Yes, sir. And I'd just like to add in a little bit of information about Mr. Stanford. In 1970, Stanford converted to Islam and changed his name to Muhammad Ahmad. He returned to college, earned a Bachelor's of Arts degree from the University of Massachusetts in 1976, and a Master of Arts from Atlanta University in Georgia in 1986. His master thesis was The Revolutionary Action Movement, RAM, a study of urban revolutionary movement in Western capitalist society. Ahmad gained his PhD from the Union Institute and University in 1992 with a dissertation titled The Black Liberation Movement Then and Now, Case Studies of the Classes, Composition, and Attitudes of Social Movement in Western Capitalist Society. And this goes into my next question. What was...
Okay, hold up. Before you go on that question, I want to add another propagation. You know what I'm saying? I would think about something one of the elders that told me, right? There's also the publication newsletter they had on the West Coast called Black Power. They're also propagating and pushing certain things. Regarding propagation as well on the West Coast called the Black Power. There's a newsletter that would use that also as a political tool and a propagation tool on RAM as well during that time in the sales. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. What was RAM's relationship to the Black Power movement?
Well, like I said earlier, right? They formed a relationship, you know what I'm saying, with SNCC. Okay. And Tobler Carmichael at that time, him and Casa Rick at that time, they were members of SNCC. And it was a chapter, in SNCC called Divine City, office in Atlanta, right? And they made their proposition called the Black Power Position Paper, right? Now, a lot of written up were right in the base in regard to what RAM or the organization were already talking about, because RAM had a great influence on SNCC also as well, right? In regards to them being nationalistic. At the beginning, they started with the National Coordinating Committee, then it became nationalistic through the Non-Violent National Committee when they started dealing with RAM in regards to this certain concept, because a lot of the SNCC, when SNCC first was developed, there was a lot of Europeans in the organization. When they became nationalistic, a lot of them broke away before their own new African chapters of SNCC and new African structure. They changed the old structure. So they were influenced by Master Stanford, other individuals out of RAM that were pushing the aspect of Black revolutionary nationalism and also had Black nationalism, because due to the fact what Malcolm X was saying, other individuals might have, that's how you gain Black power, by having your own land, control your own territory, control your own policy, economic, so forth and so on, right? So because of Ricks and Stokely Carmichael, they started beginning to chant the term Black Power, which the term that was already being pushed in the 50s and all. It really was pushed all back to the 1800s during Fred Dudley time, right? But Round were actually pushing and promoting these ideas and concepts at that time. And like I was saying earlier, they had the Black Power publication that was being pushed out the West Coast, which is by a round-based organization as well, collective. So the whole aspect of the Black Power position and status and development were actually coming out of these round cadres, in regard to the work they were doing, the connection they had, and also um, in regard to the political development and political line they were holding as well. You know what I'm saying? Because they knew Black Power was total freedom and liberation from everything that was around because they were fighting against it at that turn. They want term of being white supremacy. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. I'd like to add another thing
Because
between,
again,
and
so and because of Rick, they basically popularized the term Black Power. They basically popularized. Okay, go ahead.
yes, sir. Between 1964 and 1968, Ram's attempt to politicize Black Philadelphia drew the attention of the FBI. In 1966, Stanford and 15 other Ram members were arrested in New York on charges of conspiring to assassinate NAACP leader Roy Wilkins in the Urban League's Whitney Young. Stanford was acquitted on these charges, and he promptly returned to the Philadelphia to establish the Black Guard, of what you mentioned earlier, a youth and self-defense wing of RAM. And this goes into my next question. What is the relationship between RAM and the New African Independence Movement?
Okay, okay. Even before I say that, like during those time periods, during no allegation, a lot of things Dr. Muhammad Atmar was doing at that time. Baba Atmar was doing. He actually went on the ground a lot of things to avoid a lot of legalities and being captured. So for he was eventually captured in 1972, then released in 1973. Right, they wanted him captured. But during that time, in '67, during those time, he was functioning on the ground. 67, 68, they said that he was functioning on the ground a lot of the time period, right? And during his time functioning on the ground, so to speak, um, a lot of the round members, um, but based by way of Guidey Abdel Mara, who also members around, they created an organization in 1967 called the Malcolm X Society, right? And the Malcolm X Society was an organization that was bent on carrying on the legacy of Malcolm X, who was also the international spokesman around. And so I mean, the concept was based on self-determination, internationalism, you know what I'm saying, and the aspect of self-government, right? Um, Barbara Herman Ferguson was also arrested on some of the charges as well, which is another member around. But during that time period, they put out the Malcolm side put out a letter dated March the 5th, 1968, in regards to like they want to have a government conference in Detroit, Michigan, right? That was stated for March 30th to March 31st. But the 29th, there were everybody just conversating, politicking in the hotel, right? 20 grand hotel, whatever, right? So doing that aspect of things, Freedom of Public Africa was founded. A lot of the founders of other Freedom of Public Africa were round members, such as Queen Mother Moore, who was the first one to sign Declaration of Independence, Barbara Herman Ferguson, Dr. Muhammad Atmar, who also was an ambassador, and Barbara Herman Ferguson, who had a Ministry of Education, Guy Abdeli, Marvin Daly, people like Dr. Matula Shakir, you know what I'm saying, Barbara Herman Ferguson, Robert Williams. It's a long list of individuals. All the people around members at that time, right? And also, a lot of the Black Guard, when they turned, became part of the Black Legionnaires. Also, a lot of round influence in Cleveland and Ohio as well. They influenced a lot of organizations like the Waste of Google as well. A lot of them round members also as well, right? So they influenced all these organizations, and the Brown had a great influence on the founder of the Bureau of Africa, which became known as the African Independent Movement. Because, like I said, a lot of them was in the Black Legionnaires. A lot of them also were government officials, right? And you look at the Legionnaires, Black Legion, you look at the Republic of Africa, the PG, you also look at a lot of the citizens and the collective cadres. That's the new African Independent Movement. So Ram had a great influence upon those aspects of things, right? Of the people at that time, and put promoting propagating the African independent movement at that time, right? Um, and I hope that answers your question, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I would like to say also as well in 1967, Philadelphia police and the FBI began a campaign of surveillance of RAM. In 1968, Stanford allegedly dissolved RAM, and by 1969, members joined other organizations, which lead to my question going back just a little bit. How long was RAM really around, and what happened to RAM?
Well, I want to say also that I want to say also a lot of individuals like William Granton, who was the first Minister of Foreign Affairs of the PG coming out of Ohio, right? He also was a member of RAM also. And also to go back, like a lot of members of the Republic of New Libya, Republic of New Libya coming out of Muhammad Akbar were also RAM members as well. But some of them also were founders of the PG also as well, right? So it's another round based formation, as well as a great influence on. They also influenced another organization out of Ohio known the Afro Set National Party as well. So a lot of them individuals were founders of the PG also as well, right? So that goes back to say add even more emphasis on RAM being more influential to certain things, right? But repeat your question again, bro.
Well, you basically answered it, but I ask again. It's just amazing to see that the influence that Ram had during this time, and even though so far as the name dissolved, but they really just embedded themselves into different organizations, like you said, the PGRNA to the Black Legion to the Black Panther um
But
organization.
House of
And,
Jamoja,
yeah, they
but
just they just they just embedded themselves into all these other organizations. So really, they didn't really go nowhere. They just stayed in the fight, and that's an amazing thing to hear. That not the average person would know if they didn't study or know somebody. But like I said, going back to my question, I asked how long was they around, and what happened to them, and also what type of organization was RAM?
uh, 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 well, okay. Well, um, you want to look at dates, you could say they were around from you want to say 62 to you want to say roughly 68, 69, 70. But during that time period, Ram in '68 they became known as the African American Liberation Party, right? That was '68. Then it turned to Black Liberation Party. Then it turned to all African. Then it turned to the African People Party, APP, right? But it still was around people. That was on the East Coast side. It still around people. Whereas on the West Coast, they still were functioning as the House of Emoji. You know, um, they still functioning as the House of Emoji. But on the East Coast, they were African People Party. They first started off as the African American Liberation Party, then the Black Liberation Party, then the African People Party, right? That was their function on the West Coast, which was also around. They had that same chapter where they started off the Ram chapter in Philadelphia. They started APP chapter in Philadelphia. You know what I'm saying? That sprung all the way like 68 hours to like to the 70s. They sprung out from that time period. And there's still people that came from that aspect of things as well, you know what I'm saying, such as the Black Work for Justice, and other individuals came from that aspect as well. And also in regard to that aspect of things, the House of Mojo became a part of APP as well in the 70s, right? The House of Mojo did, but the APP still was going on, you know. The House of Mojo became a part of it as well from the West Coast. And Round Base was you said what type of organization for Round, right? Um, I consider Round consider uh, a semi clandestine organization that were cadre based and internationals, right? Who were bent on building a Black Liberation Front, were bent on creating other aspects of things, bent on creating a front, and they're also influential because the same remnant that we talking about, a thing continue on. Um, a lot of these foundations of them became other organizations such as NAPO, you have People Organization, uh, the Malcolm Grassroots Movement. These organizations had roots in RAM and Hostel Moses, the Soul Book Collect. They had roots in these foundations. So it still continue on today in these different organizations from a historical sense of things, right? And some of the organizations still carry some of the same tenets that the House of Moses and Round push as well within their documentation, also with the documentation they carry now from their own particular organization, right? So it was a lot of political repression at that time that caused everything to occur. Especially in regard to the change of names from African American to Black to African, such and so forth, so on, right? That ideological struggle that we all endure in regard to make things the way they are, knows the ideological struggle, right? I just want to add, I just want to say that.
How did Ram directly or indirectly influence street gangs, street tribes in the Midwest and the West Coast, as Tupac attempted to politicize them before he was murdered? Also, how did Sister Elder Ella Baker directly or indirectly influence Ram creation?
Because Ella Baker, you know what I'm saying, was a close relationship with Dr. Muhammad Atwad, who was one of the main theoreticians around, right? One of the main organizers of it, right? They had a strong relationship, a working relationship at that. And whereas the street element that, like during that time, during the 60s, during that time, right? A lot of street organizations were developed and working during that time on the streets. In Philadelphia, had a lot of street organizations. Chicago, LA, Oakland, and a lot of the individuals were directly communicated with and directly politicized, educated to their aspect, especially in New York. A lot of elements in New York, such as the five percenters, right? For instance, uh, the five percenters, a lot of five percenters recruited from the street organizations, right? And the five percenters were recruited by people like Queen Mother Moore to be a part of the Round Bay Black Panther chapter. A lot of 5%, a lot of people that were recruited in New York by Queen Mother Moore and Maxwell Stanford at that time out of Harlem. And also in Philly, a lot of them tried were basically due to the condition forced to be a part of the Black Guards. And the Black Guard was an element that we recruited from the young people, and they were looking at the mentality of being a guerrilla. And the Black Guard had a handbook called the Black Guard Manual, right? Now, if you look at that manual, in a position and title and degree, you'll see that it's almost a replica of what the same rank and position in regards to the Black Legion had this day, right? Who were also creating from them street elements also as well, right? Then also they were going to Chicago and different places, they meet people directly and talking to people that they were actually pushing certain aspects. You gotta think about it. In Chicago, the Black Power movement and the Black Art movement were real prevalent, in the 60s there, right? So a lot of the organizations, such as the Stone, the GD, the Cypher, so forth, so on, they were pushing certain ideas that were reminiscent and emblematic of the Black Power thing. In fact, organizations like the Stones and the Vice Lord had the glove and the black fist themselves as emblems of their symbolism, but to go back to the Black Power fist unification, right? So Round were actually in the position and places through their own communication, own network, and organize and educate these brothers and sisters to actually become a part of the collective at that time in particular, right? Well, later on became an aspect that the Blackstone Ranger actually signed on to the plebiscite, the British African style, but found it also as well, right? They also had the LSD they were pushing in 67, 69, a time when Round Black Guard were actually pushing out there in regards to recruiting from those street elements to make those guerrilla forces. So yeah.
I would like to ask a real question. How can Rams audio political analysis be utilized in the 21st century where historical continuity is weak and distorted?
Well, I actually feel that the code of the cadre and the rule of safekeeping of secrets, right? Once analyzed and one critique to their full advancement, they can be utilized to strengthen all cadre cell units all the formations within you have independent Black Earth movement, so forth and so on, right now in particular, if applied and critiqued properly while looking at learning from the mistakes and also learning from the achievement and comfort of RAM and also following what some of the successful movements, sister organizations are doing to today, and particularly getting involved. So it's just how to feel my own personal standpoint. And the foundation of all this is what we're doing right now, political education.
I'm happy that you brought up political education and you use the word politicize a lot. It seems to be in this new generation, they do not understand political education and politicizing so far as the youth. They may think that's a little bit too extreme and why are you using all these long words and things of that nature? Can you please uh, let people know the importance of getting politicized and politically educated so far as in this realm and line of work?
Okay. One thing I want to say, but I want to add on to what I was saying earlier about the street trials, right? Uh, we got to think about it, right? You had during the '60s, a lot of rebellion taking place. For example, the Watts Rebellion in '65, right? Uh, the Detroit Rebellion, '67. You know what I'm saying? The different rebellions and the Hugh Rebellion in the '60s and '67, '68, in Ohio. The different rebellions taking place all around the world, right? So they actually gave RAM an aspect to propagate and the street tried to particularly during the rebellions in order to organize them and educate them, and also politicize them to be a part of a particular movement, during that time. That is one of the I want to add that element to what we were saying earlier about it. The previous last conversation, right? And yeah, I just want to add that to the I want to add it to the conversation.
Going back to the 12-point program, could you add more emphasis on who drafted it?
The 12 program was drafted by the Central Committee. The Central Committee drafted that. The Central Committee was the government body around, and a lot of individual people like Matthew Stanford, Malcolm X, Robert Williams, Gotti Albedelle, and all that, so forth and so on, right? It was like the Central Committee, which is the government body up in the inner structure, right? And also, when you look at these things, you also when you look at these things, you look at a lot of the aspects of what Round were doing, right? Um, in regards to their programs, ideas, and concept ideology, you look at a lot of the street tribes that later on that they became strong in the '60s and '70s, like Imam Malik, Jeff Ford, Larry Hoover, and Imam, and also the aspect that we talked about, the COINTELPRO, that at that one time, Dr. Muhammad Act with Matthew Stanford, what is the most what the person they wanted the most out of that list, right? Because he organized, he was influential out of everybody at that time. They wanted him and him and other people like Imam Jamil Amin, who also was a SNCC member, that merged onto the Black Panther Party of Self-Defense. The individual, when you look at historically from the aspect of things, the round platform was very inspired, influential to all the individual organizations, right? And also made it emphasis more easier for them to put out the notification to destroy the Black Messiah, any kind of type of leadership. And mind you, a lot of people in the street organizations had strong leadership, especially in Chicago in regard to the time of the LSD. The leadership between the Lord, the Stone, and the Disciple real strong because they was engaged into activities that were geared toward uh, uh, nationhood, it geared toward ownership of property, it geared toward the aspect of Africanizing the mind, it geared toward giving new African jobs, it geared toward forming defenses and culture aspect for the people, and the apparatus was always needed to make the conditions and ease and make conditions and resolve the ills, and you have people needs and desires by giving them solutions to their particular problem, to be solutionaries, right? So it all makes sense historically when you look at things. Also, you look at the condition now. Look at a lot of conditions now. A lot of the individuals and organizations and collectives now, a lot of them not propagating a strong sense of political education. So they leave a lot of their members with the notion that they can just Google something, or they just listen to a YouTube video, or they can just go in their own mind and create their own thing because they don't have an ideology base. So they actually just grabbing guns and put on uniforms and everything and just run around propagating things, right? And another thing I wanted to mention is that why I said that the Round Bay Black Panther chapter, they wore all black, whereas the Black Panther Party, they wore blue shirts and black pants. I wanted to mention that while I was thinking about it at a particular time, right?
As we speak about this modern time of how we can make it practical, um, how RAM was organizing back then with the seriousness, does conditions have to change in order for our people to wake up and actually organize like RAM did back in the days? Do you feel like it's a time in need for us to organize like RAM today?
Well, I feel like the need already been here. It been here, you know what I'm saying? It been here since it been here before RAM was created, and it gonna be here after RAM. It been here after RAM dissolved or disbanded. You know, it's not a more prevalent time now to organize the way they did or do certain things they did, or at least critique and analyze their particular models to bring it to a whole nother level, because and the whole nother level in regard to what's going on right now, in particular, due to the fact that like I mentioned earlier, all these propagation engines and work they were doing, right? We don't have that, but we have propagation engines right now, but these propagation engines are not working collectively. Okay, they were talking about pushing the international aspect and national aspect. We had different movement, national, international, but that liberation front is not there. So just by listening to these examples and critiquing these examples and applying these principles and concept ideas right now to the current predicament of the various movements and the various movements such as the New African Independent Movement, the Liberation Movement, and the Pan African National Movement, and the prison movement, so forth and so on. Well, I feel like we'll yield better results if we actually look at the different blueprints and model before us that they already been presented. From RAM, from the African Blood Brotherhood, from the UNIA, for so forth and so on. We look at these examples and critique them, and also if the elders around that actually been in these certain areas, ask questions. The, we got to utilize the elders around. The elders around that been involved these things and these formations, these entities, and play certain roles. Ask these individual questions. Sit down and go talk to them. Break bread with them, eat with them, kick it, vibe with the elders, and get an understanding. Ask questions. You know what I'm saying? You need to ask questions. You want to see literature. You want to know dates. You want to know titles. You want to exercise around. You want to put theory into practice. So it's important that we apply these concepts and ideas to our current state of evolving, man. You know what I'm saying? Try to do better and move forward regardless of what we got going on in particular right now. It's important that we do that. At least try. At least try certain things, or at least ask questions, man. So the greatest resource that we got is each other, the human resource. You know, like I said before, the form of capital, the human capital, that's the foundation of it. So the greatest form of resource, the human resource. And we talking about this a Vito Wawa too, a people's war, or people's struggle, so to speak. I mean, we got the people need to be utilized from a certain standpoint to change. We need to come together and realize the power we have as individuals, the power we have, as a collective, power we have as a group, power we have as a cell, as a cadre, as a unit, as a formation. And use our own human resources, which is our own mind, our own intellect, our own skill sets, our own talents, our own wit, our own so forth and so on to accomplish what we need, right? And like you asked earlier about the political aspect, but what we got to realize is that everything we do is political, right? If we somebody want to get some food, right? We somebody what's your policy for getting food? If you're hungry, you gotta have some kind of policy to get food, right? If you're hungry, you gotta have some kind of strategy, some kind of idea, some kind of concept, some kind of line, some kind of philosophy. You gotta have some kind of way of getting food. Like a family. A family is a government structure, right? A family is a government structure. That's political. Everybody in the family has a function. The mother has a function. The father has a function. The children have function. Even the dog or the cat have function in a political structure. They have roles, So that's politics. So off the real, the basic politics, the basic well a government, and the government begins with yourself self-government. So that's what the best form of knowledge is self-knowledge, self-education. Like Malcolm X called a homemade education. So being self-taught, self-learned, being an autodidactic. So the whole aspect of being politicized, to be aware of the politics in your area, being aware, of the social political plight, being aware of the economic plight, being aware of everything in a particular area, so you can maintain government control of that, and also be independent, and also realize that self-determination and being self-governed. We can realize this because we all had that fight that we all want to own control and operate things. We all want to be free. We all want to be liberated. We all want independence. We all want to control everything. We all want to control our own food stores, our own weapons. We want to have our own schools, our own banks, our own grocery stores. We want to have our own clothing. We want to create our own clothes. We want to have our own electricity, our own water. We want to have everything in our own. That's self-determination. And also that's self-government. They're also being political and politicized through education and means, Education for liberation. We can't liberate ourselves if we ain't got no education. We know our education is going to be political because it's going to give it the power to self-govern ourselves with self-determination. Or we say in Swahili, Kuja Chakalia, which is also a principle of Kwanzaa in the Guta Saba, one of the black principles. Now, yeah. Hold on, I want to add one more thing to it as well. I want to mention Imam Jamil Amin. But Imam Jamil Amin known as H. Brad Brown, right? Also member of SNCC. Imam Jamil Amin has been pivotal over the decades in regard to organize the street organizations, you know what I'm saying? Organized street organizations for years and decades, right? In fact, when they had the historically Al Ummah, which is an Islamic body, had actually worked with different elements from the street element, from the growth and development, from the Black Keystone Nation, the Vice Nation, so forth, so on. Right? I just wanted to mention that also as well, right? And also that H. Right Bright, man, Jamel Amin were back during those times of the rebellion, 67, 68, 69, 65, so forth, so on, around with actually out in the street, recruiting people, educating people in the street tribes, the other entities and street propaganda, right? I just want to add that as well. That's what I was thinking about it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, I kind of wish I lived in the 60s. The more you explain it, it seemed to be very active, very educational, yet risky and dangerous at the same time. What a time to be a revolutionary during that time. Salute to all the fallen soldiers and the people who got locked up during that time and sacrificed everything for us. But one of my questions is, you bring up this word "snick." You said it a whole bunch of times, "snick," and I think you explained it a little bit. But can you add more emphasis and detail of what exactly is "snick"?
Well, SNCC stands for Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, right? It actually was a movement that was developed in 1960 at the University of North Carolina. And one of the founders of it was a sister named Ella Baker, right? It was geared to it was a civil rights organization starting the campus, right? Mind you, we were talking earlier about the campus aspect, how Maxwell Stanford, Dr. Muhammad Ali was on the campus, and he was on how he was on the campus in Ohio, how Don Freeman was on the campus in Ohio and other institutions, and also how they also was on campus in California, other aspects with the AA, the African American Association was a history program, history organization out there, national organization out there in California that predate a lot of the experiences with the Black Panther Party because they were going on the early 60s well, and they influenced a lot of people and connected a lot of people in the Black Power self-defense out on the West Coast. These were student bodies, right? So SNCC was basically like one of the forerunners that was out there in regard to the student development movement, right? And they also were pushing a lot of aspects of civil rights at that time, out of the student aspect. So they started forming chapters all around the world. They find the aspects of white supremacy and white terror domination. And SNCC was the ones who actually first organized the first Black Panther Party known as the Loudoun County Freedom Organization, or the Loudoun County Freedom Party, Atlanta County, Alabama, right? That was a SNCC organization, right? And he also drafted what you in turn the Black Power position papers on Divine City office in Atlanta, right? So SNCC was very influential and prominent during from the early 60s all the way up, you know, in regards to the working activities that deal with the very things, be it civil rights, be it student activism, be it Black Power movement, be the aspect that they actually merged with Rand to start the Round Bay Black Panther started, be the point that they merged with the Black Panther Party when Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, Eman Jamel Amin, Richard H. Wright Brown, and James Foreman all attained position in the Black Panther Party, and they also SNCC. Also, a lot of some members also became members of the Republic of Africa. Eman Jamel selling and serving as the Minister of Defense. Yeah, people like Kwame Ture, I'm saying, was a deputy minister. You know, these different individuals that was SNCC also in that aspect in relation to the PG, in relation to the Black Panther Party, which is the Black Liberation Party, and the New African Independent Movement as well, right? You know, and yeah, and SNCC, a lot of individuals SNCC, you know, they were being monitored as well. So like such as H. Wright Brown, Kwame Ture, Mikasa Rick, these individuals on FBI file. The FBI were looking for them as well, you know, because of their activism, right? You know, so we look at them as well in the activism aspect. Well, Atlanta kind of few organizations, they actually carry guns and weapons. You know, they actually was a revolutionary movement. And I also want to already mention that Ram also was involved with the Deep Defense. You know, they're also involved with them to stem out of Louisiana. And I also want to go back a little farther to the late 1950s when Robert Williams was pushing the rifle clubs and resisting in Monroe, North Carolina, at the Black Armed Guard. They basically paving the way before we're doing the civil rights movement to pick up the gun, gain armed struggle. That would influence a lot of the NAACP chapters around the world, especially the ones in Philadelphia, in which Matt West Stanford and with Dr. Muhammad Ahmad were dealing with. So a lot of them NAACP chapters were influenced by the ideology of Robert Williams to be rifle club, so to speak. You know, I just wanted to mention that also as well. While I'm on the subject. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Was Fred Hampton influenced by Ram?
Well, it's kind of hard to say in particular. But it was Round Bay chapters and cadres in Chicago. Why Fred Hampton was actually he started in NAACP. And what I was mentioning earlier, you know, a lot of NAACP chapters, some of them were taking the ideology of Robert Williams. He started in the late 50s in regards to the armed square resistance, right? So it's quite possible that Fred Hampton was influenced directly, indirectly from their work because around doing some work nationally, internationally, it very few people that you can say that wasn't influenced by him or had some kind of dealings with the organization that was a part of the organization. From Dr. Matilda Shakir, from Saudi Shakir, from Robert Williams, from Queen Mother Moore, from Guy Abdella, Marv Della, from Huey Newton, from Bobby Seale, from a lot of the 5%ers, from the Detroit Revolutionary Union Movement, from the Soul Book Collective, from Republic of Libya, from the Afro Set, Republic of Africa, so forth. So the list goes on and on. It's kind of hard to say who wasn't influenced by their work because there was so much work going on, national, international, right? And this seemed to be like a hidden secret to people, to the masses, man, because they did so much work and influenced so many people, right? It's just phenomenal, especially in regard to a lot of their guerrilla work in regards to being clandestine with their guerrilla forces, you know, in regard to them pushing the first Black Liberation Army out there to the mind and mass of the people, you know. So it kind of hard not to say he wasn't, or it also kind of hard to say he was, you know. But and historically, when you look at things, when we talk, look at the discussion we're talking about, look at the history of certain things, there's a lot of influence everywhere we go, you know. That's the reality of things. But,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, but
yes, sir.
We really can't say that, but you know, we can say the influence was out there because it was, and it still is today.
Yes, sir. I would like to say most definitely the George Jackson Grassroots Collective is most definitely influenced by Ram. We will hope, I would hope, to most definitely push political education, politicizing our people, so far as our collective. We need to bring back that element back in this modern time, which a lot of organizations just don't do no more. I feel we all need to bring it back so far as every other organization, and bring back the service programs and things that we actually do that's tangible. Getting off this social media and doing the work. That's what our collective is all about. Our formation is all about, and we owe it to organizations like RAM, like the Black Panther Party and people of that nature. What can we take from RAM in this modern time and implement it now, where we will be progressive?
Okay. During round time, there wasn't no social media, right? Now, even though the internet was existing in the '60s, right? It wasn't available to the public during that time. It was existing during the '60s. It was now, but it wasn't available to the people, to the masses. Okay. The thing I'm gonna take that we should take from Realm is the rules for the safekeeping of secrets. A lot of times we talk too much, and we talk too much. We put too much stuff out there. We let people know too many different things, right? In order for it to be successful or organized like Round was, you got to be clandestine. A lot of organizations, a lot of people didn't know your organization around until later on in history. They didn't know your organization was with Round because the way they kept the secret, where they moved in the shadows. They were influential, but you didn't actually know that everybody that you didn't know that people actually was in it, but it's influential, right? So the whole aspect of being clandestine is a strong element to take from this, right, in regards to our activities. We can copy more. We can copy more being clandestine because clandestine it give you a more seriousness about things when you agree to be clandestine. When you to be clandestine, you really be underground in regard to certain things you do. And then when it's time to really show your advance, you rise up bound, but even be above ground already and underground at the same time. So look at that particular aspect of things of life, right? In regard to development and organizing, right? I feel like that's a successful way to do certain things because as long as the things are known, they can be destroyed. As long as they're not known, they can't be destroyed, right? And I'm gonna read the rule for safekeeping the secrets off again, as my statement. What I'm saying, to say one, make absolutely no mention of secrets which should not be mentioned. Two, making no attempt to find out secrets which should not be known. Three, taking definitely no look at the secret which should not be looked at. Four, mention absolutely no secret in private correspondence. Five, recording no secret matters in private notebook. Six, discussing no secret in places not advantaging to security. Seven, keeping a careful custody of classified documents carried on a tour and making sure they will not be lost. Eight, waging a resolute struggle when discovering violations of the security system and acts of losing and disclosing secrets and report immediately to the superior. That's my statement, man. Rules for safekeeping the secret. That, that, that,
Yeah,
that'll take it a long way if we look at that.
yes, sir. Security is first. And I'd like to thank you for coming on here today. I would like to leave the room open for people with questions. Can you please raise your hand if you have any questions? Everybody raise their hand. If you have a question, raise your hand. You can ask him. And I have one question. With technology at the stage it is today, isn't it hard to be clandestine? In the youth of today, only engaged in VA media platforms?
Well, it's all you can always take things off social media. You can always meet with no phone, no app. You can always meet like that in the dark and say we discuss we want to discuss without any kind of technology, without any kind of internet asset, without any kind of media asset. You can always do that. It's a choice. It's a choice we have. If you think about it, the masses we want to follow with the trend. The trend is to be in a social media world. You know, and you look at the word social media, think about it, the aspect of social engineering the mind. Social media influences the way we think and act and conduct ourselves through a manipulation process that's psychological. By creating suggestions, our suggestion in our mind, I'm gonna suggest you think this. Like for instance, on Facebook, a friend suggestion. That's a psych, that's a psych, that's a psychological implant. We're gonna suggest You gonna suggest that they be my friend and without me suggesting it, or you suggest I try this food or read this book without me suggesting? That's psychological control and manipulation. You know, whereas we turn it all the internet stuff off and organize like they did during no time they had internet access and meeting the dog, and just talk about certain things fade to fade without all the other technology aspects, then it can work. So it's all about a particular effort and find a method to make it happen. It's a way for everything.
Yes, sir. And I agree with what you said about that. So far as social media, that is more used as a propaganda engine tool, just like what me and you talk about all the time. For money, but so far as clandestine and activities to that nature, anything sensitive and real, like you said, people can meet all different sorts of ways where you create a security and protocol to yourself and link with these individuals and organize. Not everything is for, that's one of my sayings, not everything is for Instagram and YouTube and the book. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I do agree with you on that, Mr. Shakur.
No doubt, no doubt. Gotta push forward, man. It's on us how far we want things to advance. It's on us, man. It's on us. That
Yes,
we
sir.
gotta think the greater resource that we have. The only
I
thing
would
we
like
allow
to.
to recognize.
I got a question about media and controlling propaganda. How important is it? And just like you brought up the propaganda in the media, how important is it to control that and paint our own narrative?
It's imperative, if I survive, because if we don't tell our own stories, right, or share our own narrative, the oppressor will. And then when the oppressor does it, the oppressor gonna manipulate the way people think about it, how they view us, and also taint the information and what we put out there because we didn't put it out on ourselves. And we see this all the time. Like for instance, look at how COINTELPRO painted the image of all our heroes and heroes as villains. Look how they painted the image of these people being terrorists. You know, you think about it. How can groups of terrorists that go around and kill people all over the world now and take what they want and plunder and take resources what they want, call other people that fight for self-determination, independence, the same way they got this self-determination, revolutionary war, as terrorists, a security risk. That's asinine to me. It doesn't make any sense, right? So that because we don't control their propaganda. Like we're doing right now, we telling the story of our people, of what I'm saying, notable organizations or notable individuals, so we control our own narrative that comes from us. It's not coming from the European, it's not coming from the system. It comes from people that actually love and involve in these things, actually coming from a lot of information I'm coming from my coming from my conversation with a lot of the elders involved in a lot of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? From RAM, from Halston Moja, from APP, so forth and so on. From now all these different umbrellas. I'm talking to Afro Set, Republic New Liberty, from all these different aspects of things. My communication comes to the individual for decades plus with the individual conversation with them and talking to them. I also analyze the documents and the letters, the books, the pictures, so forth and so on that been shared with me. You know what I'm saying? That I've been uh they've been basically being virtuous to me. I've been, I've been this all their virtues to me. They've been gifted to me on certain aspects. So now I'm sharing it with y'all. I'm sharing it with the public. I'm sharing it with other people. The things that need to be shared. I'm sharing things with the people. That I know that need to be out there for education and educated purposes, man, for the purpose of propagation, right? And the more we control our narrative, the more our people develop love, pride, uh, and respect for each other. We don't respect ourselves enough. We don't love ourselves. We don't have pride in ourselves enough because there's not enough propaganda. Because we already come from an institution, American education, that teaches us not to love ourselves, teaching us not even to even know about ourselves. You look at it first through kindergarten through 12th grade. There's a very few there's very few lessons all throughout them 13 years that resonate with a new African mind. Everything they're teaching you is uh, how to be a commodity for white supremacy, how to be a slave miner for white supremacy. They're teaching you how to go out there, and and build up the workforce for white terror ownership, white supremacy. They're not teaching how to love yourself. They're not teaching what your culture. They're not teaching how to be independent. They're not teaching about your revolutionary hero. They're not teaching about the struggles. They're not teaching about your true history in regards to they created. They're not teaching none of that. They're teaching the things that they whitewash you and program condition you to think like a European and think like an agent of the system. They make you a menial. And they're using the aspect we call arbitrary teaching. Arbitrary is something that they tell you what they want you what they want you to know in order to control you. Arbitrary teaching, they're arbitrary the teaching. That's how they educating us, right? And so in conjunction to that, we start looking at things from the absent education aspect and go against that, we'll gain more love, pride, and more power and more respect in regard to ourselves as individuals, particularly our different heritages, our different cultures, our different stories. They'll put something in us if one of them want to make a change different because we understand things realistic from a different level, from a scientific level in which they're not teaching us. You know, they'll make it better for us to do certain things to make things accomplish, man. So every chance we get, we might use every tool that we got to propagate certain things. If we got our own radio, it'd be good we had our own newspaper. You know, I was just in Baltimore the past weekend, and Baltimore has very publication, man. They got one newspaper. They got like 4 sections. It's like a book when you grab it. It's like a book, literally. They called it the National Black Unity News. It's like a book. I mean, it like about 3 newspapers in one. How thick it is, and everything in it, New Africa, everything. You know, that's a publication to it. They've been going on for decades, though. You know, they're just an example. You had to rebuild newspaper, been clicking. You know, you had to buy any mean news newspaper been going on. You know, you got other very publications that been going on out here, man. The Final Call, you know what I'm saying? Muhammad Speaks, got down the Muslim Journal, you know, different things out here. So imagine if all these engines and tools that was out here were pushing the same narrative during the same time period. Imagine what kind of effect it would have on the masses if you got 30 newspapers pushing the same narrative at the same exact time. Think about how much unification would be going on across the nation. Think about how much productivity, institution building, nation building. We across the nation, we did that. For instance, we have 100 radio shows. Think about a radio show pushing the same particular narrative at the same particular time. Think about the results of that. That's propagation. That's what the enemy does. That's what the oppressor does. They put the same bullshit propagation out on all the social media sites at the same exact time. They'll come with a water bucket challenge and push it on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all at the same time. They'll go another challenge out where you got them you walking on got them milk carts and shit like it's a pyramid or some bullshit like that on all the same platforms. You know, they're just examples of propagation right there. Imagine what it happened if we turn propagation around and control our own narrative, control our own stories and images. We create our own social media sites. You know what I'm saying? That are not Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Create our own sites, you know. And like they're doing like site like a Be by 2 May, which is an all African, new African site. Be by 2 May, go on that site there. Or we bring more traffic to that, or create our own platforms, you know. Think what kind of effect we have. That means we won't be dealing with all this bullshit, you know, or we won't be dealing with, we won't be a victim we won't be a victim to what their oppressor put out there in regards to their own propagation, you know, their own manipulation standpoint, their own social engineering process that they got to go on through.
Yes, sir, because like you said, through all that propagation, I mean, most definitely they utilize it to use it against us. And you know, like I said, make us dumb down, desensitize, and worry about things that we're not supposed to be worrying about. That's another reason why we got the George Jackson Radio by Bomani, and that's another reason why we created this platform as well, the George Jackson Grassroots Collective Dialogue session on YouTube, so people can get the information and we grow organically towards the people that are serious and understand the objective of what we're trying to do. So most definitely, we most definitely need to control our media, our narrative. Bomani, you have anything else left to say before we go out?
Hey, you know, The only thing I want to say what Malcolm has said: education and passport to our future. That's it.
Yes, sir.
Free
All
to
right.
land.
Free to land to that. Everybody free to land.
Free to land.